Good morning and welcome to this fourth and penultimate day of the influence of carbs on the well-being of Christians. It's getting decidedly more difficult now. Today's talk is entitled, How Much Sugar? My starting point is that there are worldly and heavenly standards regarding food just as there are in the rest of a Christian's walk with the Lord. The former the devil uses to cripple our lives, the latter to bring life and health. Such is the complexity of nutrition that the margins are very blurred. Dr. George Campbell was a profound thinker, researcher, and physician specialist based for much of his professional life at King Edward VIII Hospital in Durban. A world-renowned doctor, diabetes was his dedicated interest, and in particular the effect of changes of diet on the effect of rural Indians and Zulus as they migrated to the cities in KZN. Sucrose, of course, is not a starch, but all carbs are made up of long chains of sugar molecules. They all pass through the portal blood system and end up through the liver as glucose. Indians who well know were brought to South Africa as indentured laborers to harvest sugarcane. Whilst working very hard in the fields, consuming large amounts of sugar by chewing the cane for energy, they were generally pretty healthy. Rural Zulus ate unrefined mealie meal, crushed or milled by farmers locally for starch, and even today, diabetes affects less than 4% of the population living in the country. However, discovering the charms of refined meal in the cities, both wheat and maize, they began to add large amounts of sugar to their food to give it flavor, and white rice too. So with the move to Durban, both Indians and Zulus began to eat fiber-poor rice, cake flour, and refined maize meal. More, they both began to consume large amounts of sugar and salt. And as we all know, once refined, grains have no taste. How would a cake taste without the sugar? Dr. Campbell's research on these people led him to propose what today is known as the 20-year diabetes rule. Consuming 20 teaspoons of sugar per day for 20 years will almost certainly guarantee that we begin to suffer from insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. Eminent pathologist Professor George Lundberg adds grist to the mill. Do not consume sugar, either add it to anything, in home-cooked or restaurant meals, in soft drinks, fruit juices, pastries, desserts, or processed foods. That certainly seems totally over the top and extreme until you read his credentials. He was a pathologist. He spent his whole professional life dealing with what kills people. We Christians are not exempt. As Sir Arthur C. Clarke, knighted for his contribution to science, once remarked, human judges, to which we could add God, can show mercy, but against the laws of nature there is no appeal. Overconsumption of sugar is deadly. It raises triglycerides in the blood, engenders inflammation in our muscles and joints and arteries, and along with other refined starches, is the cause of fatty liver disease, for which there is no medically proven treatment, except almost total abstinence from starches, and beeswax, interestingly. The Heart Association recommends no more than 6 teaspoons of sugar per day, about 30 grams, which is probably reasonable. Personally, we try to limit ourselves to less than 3 in the jams that the good wife makes to preserve the most important phytonutrients in fruit from our garden. But then we do consume a little natural honey too, another few teaspoons. Taming the sweet tooth, even pulling it, is important. But South African children are now the second highest consumers of sugary drinks in the whole world. 1 in 8 South African adults are diabetic. Is sugar from the devil's pantry? I think so. And I'm in good company. Dr. Campbell and Professor Lundberg also thought so. Now for a little look at honey. It consists of a mixture of glucose and fructose, 2 highly glycemic sugars. It's pure mystery at this stage, but German researchers, after studying 8 different honey varieties, were astonished to find that 5 out of 6 of the natural honeys produced by small beekeepers have a low glycemic index. They have little influence on blood glucose. In fact, diabetics enjoying a little natural honey every day actually have lower fasting blood glucose in the morning. But commercial honey, once it has been processed, has a very high glycemic index, greater than that of sugar. Pollen is removed and important enzymes destroyed by heating, and over 50% of commercial honey today is adulterated with high fructose corn syrup and other chemicals, which are much cheaper to manufacture. Smell your honey before tasting it. Does it have what the foodies describe as floral tones? Or is it just sickly sweet? Natural honey contains volatile substances that give it the fragrance of a million flowers. Once processed, they are lost, and it becomes as dull and lifeless as a teaspoon of sugar. I'd like to finish off today with a few thoughts on orthorexia. It's a first cousin of better-known anorexia. It refers to the unhealthy obsession with eating only pure foods, however that is defined. And as you no doubt have noticed, I tread warily, knowing that I could easily fall into this unhealthy fascination of healthy food. The first sure sign that you're on thin ice is when you start to refuse invitations to dine with others because they might have added this or that to their cooking, or insisting that you take your own food. Orthorexia is a serious psychological illness. Despite that, there are certain so-called foods that I will not touch. But I do believe we should gladly be able, in the main, to enjoy many that we find questionable, without guilt, on what I call high and holy days. Pancakes on Shrove Tuesday, and a slice of chocolate cake at a friend's birthday party are not likely to be our downfall. Anxiety about them could. But some who are suffering from what Dr. Campbell calls the saccharine disease may feel called to give up sugar forever, as an alcoholic would refrain from all booze. Sugar is, I would suggest, definitely from the devil's pantry. In small quantities, it's probably fine. We started off this series with the prayer of Sue Fanekuk, take only home what you discern as of God. And that which your spirit suggests is just the fanaticism of Barry Lewis, you can gladly leave on the table. If, as Calvin Cook used to say, some of this leaves you with a stone in the shoe that continues to irritate, then I would suggest that perhaps God is at work. Until tomorrow then, our last episode on flour. Goodbye, and God bless as you ponder these deep and important matters. They may make the difference between you being a sickly person at 75 or a vigorous and busy 90-year-old, still joyfully serving our Heavenly Father. Goodbye.